Hello, and welcome to the first official broadcast interview of A Divine Twist. I have to actually read this. A podcast highlighting the courageous stories of those navigating cervical dystonia in hopes to offer support, resources, hope, possibility, and authentic connection and community. So, Kathy, thank you
Hi.
for being the first official participant, guinea pig subject in this conversation. So let's get right to it. Again, I want to just offer people resources, and I do need to state the disclaimer. So my name is Lisbeth Overton. I am a registered nurse for 26 years. I live in Minnesota. And nothing that I share on this channel or on this little interview podcast series is meant to be taken as medical advice, just here to offer people's personal lived experiences with dystonia and offer wisdom and nuggets, things that have helped people, so people can feel like they're not alone, because that's honestly one of the biggest things of dystonia, right? So Kathy, thank you for being here.
You're welcome.
Okay, so we're going to get right to it. I have a lot of questions and I want to keep this short and succinct. So, can you tell us a little bit about how you received your dystonia diagnosis?
My father had dystonia onset about when he was around 60 years old, and I started displaying some of the symptoms too at the same time in my life. So I figured that's what was going on. Um, I didn't want to acknowledge it. I wanted it just to go away and, come up with some other reason for it.
Mm-hmm.
And it got so bad, and I couldn't get an appointment with anyone. So I called up the office that my father had had his Botox shots at and just begged them to get me in. And they did. So the movement disorder doctor at the U of M diagnosed me unofficially. And
Mm-hmm.
then I later saw a movement disorder neurologist who did diagnose me officially.
Okay, and was the official diagnosis cervical dystonia?
Cervical dystonia.
Okay. And how many years ago was that?
That was in December of 2015.
Okay. Okay, so you've been at this for a minute?
A minute, not as long as some,
Yes,
but
yes,
long enough.
yes. And just to back up just a little bit, what were some of your first presenting symptoms, just so people can have an idea of what does that look like for you?
Well, the odd thing was I was dragging my feet a little bit. My toe would drag and I'd almost trip myself. And I looked that up and went, oh God, that's supposedly a sign of dystonia. It wasn't what my dad had, and it's not what I had
Mm-hmm.
later in my dystonia journey. And then anytime I got in a really stressful situation, my head would just pull down. I'm like,
Okay.
why is it doing this?
Okay.
So
Just to get really weird, which side did your head pull to?
I laughed.
The left? Okay. I'm a
And
lefty
then my
too.
chin went this way and
Okay.
just
Okay.
twisted.
Yeah, that's why I'm calling this a divine twist, because
Yep.
yes, I think it's divine if we choose to perceive it in a certain way. Okay, so sort of on in the same vein, how long did you have those symptoms before you got the official, you saw the whites of the eyes of the doctor and they said, yes, you have cervical dystonia? Was it months, years?
I think it was about 4 years.
Wow.
So I just kind of it didn't get really rough until the fall of the year I got diagnosed. So
Isn't that
I put it
interesting?
off a little too long.
Okay, well, that's just okay. I want to park that seed. 4 years. Okay. Now, were you told the cause of your dystonia when you got diagnosed?
Everyone just says it's probably genetic.
Mhm.
They tried, think, well, it could be from swimming. Like, I haven't done swimming in years. Could be this or that. And I didn't know. I don't know of anything
Mm-hmm.
that would have brought it on.
Okay. Okay. Um, this is a big one. Are you ready? What's the hardest part about having cervical dystonia?
It's number one, not knowing what's going on. For most people, getting the diagnosis I'm was pretty easy. Um, and the constant movement was so tiring for me
Mm-hmm.
and painful.
Mm-hmm.
The pain, and it was just tiring.
Yeah. So yeah, like having these weird physical things and for 4 years not knowing what's going on and then yeah, that chronic just taxing movement. It's yeah. Yeah. Wow. Okay, so now you sort of hinted to this already. Is there anything that makes it worse?
Stress. My husband was going to have hip surgery, and oh, that was one of the it was a month after I'd been diagnosed and got my first Botox treatment, which did not help, but it was so stressful, and I was just like everything was crunched up and
Uh-huh.
pulling, and so that is was my worst trigger, I think. And then if I'm overtired now, even I can feel the muscles just, you know,
Yeah.
tighten up and stress
Getting
up.
yeah. That's interesting about the stress. I mean, we know as humans, well, we all have chronic stress, frankly. And so it's interesting that there was this big, huge thing in your lives that was coming up and it just physically, you could feel it and see it with your symptoms, how just such a strong correlation with that. And I'm sure most people watching who are raising their hand going, yep, stress definitely makes it worse. What about what makes it better for you?
If I can get totally relaxed, I had a physical therapist that could get me just to that point,
Mhm.
and it was marvelous for about an hour,
Okay,
maybe a little bit longer.
okay.
And then I had cranial sacral massage, and that did about the same thing.
Hmm.
It'd be like, maybe this is the magic bullet, and you get up and you drive home and then uh,
Yeah.
back to. So, you do start thinking, well, is this really in my head? But it's not.
Oh, wow. Okay. So I'm sure you're not the only person who has ever thought that or felt that. I think we're gonna get into that in a different question. Um, so okay, so massage, craniosacral therapy, basically being it sounds like what you're talking about is when the part of the nervous system that is responsible for we call it, the rest and digest. It's that parasympathetic nervous system, which I always think of the word P, and it reminds me of the word peace. When that system is activated, it's like we literally can just let go, and it's like the nest tube plunge. Remember that in the old days when you would just lay back into a swimming pool,
Yep.
right? And you totally have to relax, otherwise you might slap the water on your back.
Hmm.
So it sounds like really leaning into that part of getting that part of the nervous system activated helps you just release the tension, um, which sounds really lovely. This is one of my favorite questions because I, yes, I'm an optimist, but more than that, I'm an opportunist. So of course the glass is always half full, but that's not my focus. My focus is what am I going to do with this cool glass? Maybe I'm going to break it into a million little pieces and make a piece of artwork, right? Or something. I just have a very different perspective on most things. So my question for you, Kathy, is what has dystonia taught you? I mean, you were in the teaching profession, right? So what has it taught you, if anything, that you might share?
Well, it taught me that I was stronger than I thought I was. You know, um, just to always be in constant pain. And I guess that I had ways of handling it, just accepting it more or less. I know some people say you shouldn't accept things that are bad, but
Yeah.
I just accepted it because Botox was not helping, medicine was not helping. What was I going to do?
I love that. Okay, well, in certain traditions, acceptance is the way to peace, right? Because if we're not pushing against something from an energetic perspective, and we allow it to be what it is, which is frankly hilarious. With cervical dystonia, it's literally, I mean, I like to call it the noose around the neck. It's all twisted. And so talk about, it's like this metaphorical pushing against something. And in my experience, this is just my own personal experience of the people that I have talked to. It seems like those of us who get chosen for this wild condition, we
Yay.
prefer, first of all, we're amazing. I'm just going to make that plug. I'm slightly biased. We're awesome. And we do put a high value on being in control. So I'm just curious if that resonates with you in any way, sort of like this high need for certainty. And like, I got to know how all of these parameters are going to line up before I can say that I want to do this or not. Does that
Yep.
resonate?
Hmm. Yep.
I'm just gonna close my door. I'm gonna press pause on this for just a second. Awesome. So I was just asking or sharing my theory about, it seems like those of us who are chosen, at least from my experience, at least females, I will say that I know who have this, we really um we need to know, like, how things are going to play out. We need to have some level of certainty, some control. Like, we got to know, if we push this lever, is this going to happen? And if we can't be guaranteed that, then we're like,
So is it a lesson for us to learn that we have to give up control because we don't know how this is going to go?
I that is my perception. Yes, I believe we are handed things in life that we need to work through, to process, to overcome, transcend, whatever the word is you want to use. And what better, I mean, just the physicality of cervical dystonia, like, you literally like, you can't not see it.
Right.
So I mean, I just think it's funny because obviously it hasn't always been funny to me. I've come sort of on this other side of this, like you. I've come into this place of peace and acceptance for however it's manifesting in the moment. Obviously, sometimes they're better than others. It's just that from what I know about energy is that anytime we're pushing against anything, it always backfires. It's like, one of my favorite teachers talks about trying to hold the metaphor of trying to hold a cork underwater is very difficult. You talk about the neck moving all the time. It's literally like holding the cork under the water. It's buoyant. It wants to come up to the surface. And so I see it as an opportunity. And people who have a hard time seeing it as an opportunity have more discomfort, more misery, more suffering, and we're all on our own journey. So we can't just snap our fingers and be like, oh, hey, Kathy, just snap out of it, would you?
Sure.
So would you say, because you're more accepting of this and your physical symptoms are really improved from how they were before, would you say that that has also allowed you to become maybe more relaxed in this need for control in life?
A little bit. Yeah.
Isn't that cool?
Lesson learned.
Right? It's like an added benefit. you know?
So I think on my treatment, like I have had deep brain stimulation, or I would not be in this situation. But um, I'd had no expectations of what the surgery was going to come up with.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
So what would be,
Okay.
and it was came out fine, excellent. So
And when was your surgery?
March and April of 2021.
Okay, so you've had it a while.
Mhm.
Yeah, so for people that are listening that don't know, DBS stands for deep brain stimulation. So you literally have wires going into your brain, right? That are
Right.
connected to a battery or a device that has
Hmm.
settings on it.
There. Yep.
Yeah. And so um from my understanding, because cervical dystonia is essentially there's some kind of miscommunication or the communication that's going from the brain to the body, specifically the neck and the shoulders and the head, is it's either not the right information or it's not the right timing. And so that's why cervical dystonia presents in this. It could be the frequent movements, whether it's a head tremor or your neck, your scalene muscles are just contracting 24/7, or they're so tight that they just get stuck. We both have had situations where our heads were stuck. And so the stimulator is disrupting the communication, right? So it allows your muscles to just be normal, right? So um what has the DBS given you back that you didn't have before?
I can wear mascara again. No.
Oh, that's
It's kind of hard
right.
to
Like,
put on
what?
mascara. Poke yourself in the eye, but
Yeah. Okay, well,
and I'll
that's a big thing for a woman, especially if you like to wear makeup. Like that's something like some people would never even imagine not being able to wear mascara. Okay, so you can wear mascara. You're able to
drive.
drive a car now because you don't did you had a trimmer before you had a trimmer? Okay,
Yeah, it would
yeah,
pull. So,
okay.
you know,
Yeah. Wow. And so
not good when you're driving.
yeah, exactly. Did your trimmer go away like right when you woke up from your surgery?
No, it would, well, for a short time. They call it the honeymoon period. But
Okay.
then after I got programmed, which is about a month later, I believe,
Okay.
or 2 months, it was later that evening. And I was telling you that I was looking in a mirror and watching TV and went, I'm not moving. I'm, wow, this is fantastic. And I didn't say anything to my husband, and he didn't even notice. So the next day I said, did you notice that I'm not tremoring? And he's like, no.
Oh my gosh. Oh, the cat wants to join the conversation. I'm going to pause just for a second. Okay, so one of our cats loves to be part of this production. So his name is Gabe. He's really a lion and he's posing as a cat. So anyway, I digress. Okay, so the so cool. To me, what you're talking about, Kathy, is that it reminds me when people have a canker sore in their mouth. It is, it's like you can't eat, you can't do anything. All you can think about is this owie in your mouth. And then it's like you have to chew on one side of your mouth, or maybe you don't eat at all. And it's just like all you can think about. And it's so painful. And then it's like one day you're like, oh, I just had some vinegar. And where's that canker sore? So, so to me, this proves like you were, so used to the muscular, the chronic tremor and the fatigue and all that. And then it literally took you catching yourself in the mirror to see that instead of being twisted or whatever, you were upright. And even your husband was like, something's different about you. You had to tell him, right? So I just think what a gift, right? And DBS doesn't work for everybody. So
Right.
obviously there's a huge process.
So
Maybe
lucky.
we could have a different conversation about what's involved and even being considered for this type of treatment. And so maybe we'll
Sure.
have that for a different conversation. So thank you for sharing that. Here's another powerful question. Is there something, this kind of reminds me of like the control thing. Is there anything that you've had to let go of to be able to dance with this dystonia stuff more easily or just live this way?
Um, well, of course, the driving I had to give up. That was hard.
Yeah,
Losing that control of
yeah,
being able to take myself wherever I wanted, whenever I wanted.
yeah.
Um, but I'm, I'm not sure that there was anything more. I mean, a normal life, more or less, was gone.
Mm. Mm-hmm. Okay.
Um, but no,
Okay. Okay.
might have to
Fabulous.
revisit that some other time.
Yeah, of course. Okay, so another powerful question. If you had to do this all over again and be like, hey lady, we got something for you. Here you go. Here's cervical dystonia. Is there something that you would do differently next time, or if you had that opportunity?
Well, the neurologists were recommending deep brain stimulation to me almost as soon as like the second visit with the neurologist. I was like, not no. So in hindsight, I would do that sooner.
Okay.
Before I had deep brain stimulation, I had selective denervation where they cut some of the nerves in your neck, and that did nothing because I had something else thrown in. It was bobbing, is what
Oh,
the
great.
neurosurgeon said. So
Okay.
um, I would get diagnosed sooner
Okay. So does that
instead
mean
of thinking,
you would have sought treatment earlier, or what is that? Okay. Okay.
yep.
Yeah. Yeah, that's a long time, 4 years. Okay, so you would have tried out that DBS sooner, earlier diagnosis. Anything else?
I would have started physical therapy earlier
Okay.
because
Okay.
I probably was a year or so into it before I started physical therapy.
Okay. All right. So there are a couple things you might have done differently, which is
Yeah.
fine. They say hindsight's 2020. Like, hey, you know, but this is
And
your
who
first
knows?
go. So
Maybe they needed 4 more years to improve DBS.
see,
So
there you go. There's that silver lining. Love that. I love that perspective, Kathy. Okay, so what do you wish people would know or understand about cervical dystonia, if anything?
it's just, family doesn't understand. I didn't really understand my dad until I had it. You don't
Mm-hmm.
know how painful it can be. You don't know how tiring it is. And it's not all in their head. They're not whiners, they're not babies. It's truly painful.
Yeah, absolutely. It's unlike anything. Well, it's all relative, I guess. Like I've never been an opera singer. I don't know what that might be like, but it's sort of one of those things until you've walked in those shoes. I know that so many people mean well, and so that brings me to my next question. What's the most helpful tip you could offer a person that's navigating dystonia and also their loved one if they're listening? Could you give us two pieces of wisdom that would help both
Yeah.
people or parties?
Well, I think number one most important and what I see is people are embarrassed of how they look and they get socially isolated. Don't do that. And I was lucky because I found a support group like the day after I started looking and joined it. It's positive group, it's supportive group. So that is the main thing I think you can do for yourself.
Mhm.
You need a positive one. If you know, some Facebook ones are can get a little bit into negative, and you might have to take a break from that because you can still learn something from those groups. But you need something positive. And my husband went with to the first meeting, and he was taking notes like crazy and just seeing what it really was. So he's always been supportive for me since then.
It makes a huge difference. I too am blessed with a very supportive partner, and it really does make a massive difference. And so maybe for people listening, I also have seen a lot of people who have this who it can really strain a relationship, and in fact maybe relationships end. So I think to your point, Kathy, about try to, instead of isolating, which is pretty common because you feel awkward and like people are judging you. It's like, here's how I see it. People are going to judge you anyway, whether you have dystonia or not. Who cares? Like they're not paying the rent in your body, or paying the price for you isolating. So I love that. I'll put a link in the description about the Dystonia Medical Research Foundation, how you can find a group in your area. And hey, if you live somewhere out, in the middle of nowhere, and you have a computer or you have a phone, you could create a virtual group. There are creative ways where we can connect. And I love that you shared that, Kathy. Okay, so get with some other people who know what you're going through, right? I would say, like these vetted groups, right? These official things. Anything else that you were going to add? I didn't want to interrupt.
No, I think that's you touched on the DMRF, the Dystonia Research Medical Foundation, which is how I found my group.
Perfect. Awesome. Well, let me see if there's anything else. Is there anything else you want to share with anybody listening that you feel called to share before we wrap this up?
I don't think so.
Okay. Well, thank you for indulging me and having this conversation. I trust it will help at least one person. I also put a link in the description about the Dystonia Foundation has this great survey for you to take. If you think that you have cervical dystonia, but you're not sure, you can fill out the survey and then print it and take it to your doctor, which is a wonderful resource. So I'll share that in the links as well. And if people, would you be open if people had questions for you, Kathy, if they could just send them my way and you'd be open to answering those?
Sure, do my
Okay.
best.
Awesome. It takes a hive. Well, thank you so much, Kathy, for your energy, your essence, and sharing your very, personal journey with cervical dystonia. It's definitely helpful to hear other people's stories. So thank you.
You're welcome, and thank you for having me.
Of course. It's so fun. We got to stick together. We're a sacred breed. All right.
Yeah,
We'll see you guys later. I'm going to end the recording. Take care.